Good morning. I'm Bianca, and today I'm joined by Jasmin, Luke, Stephen, Jay, and Pat, some of the members of Community Courtyard, some of whom do some stuff at the yard, and Jay, who is either in Somerset or Cardiff, always living her best life, both ends of the country. But we get together on a Tuesday, have a natter, and share things locally, nationally, and internationally, and have a kind of catch up. So today we've got 3 really good conversations that we're going to be getting involved with, and I think that it is Luke who's going to start us off. Luke.
Yes. Hello everybody. So Diversity, the dance group. Have you all heard of them?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So they did a routine on, I think it's Britain's Got Talent, the semi-final. So they did a routine on there, and it was they'd in their routine they've got that they're almost telling a story. So they're telling a story about pretty much this year so far, how it was. So they got like the COVID, and they got the Black Lives Matter movement in there, and they're doing a routine around that. And it's so far, or as of today, it's become the most complained thing on TV over the last decade. It's got over 30,000 complaints. And I suppose I don't quite understand why it's got that many complaints. So yeah,
well,
I don't know.
I watched a thing on the news this morning, and it was 2 black guys debating exactly this about the diversity dance. And one guy was saying that this is ridiculous. If it made people feel uncomfortable, then they're the ones with the problem. Are these then like the racist people? He actually said that apparently in the dance there's an 8-second movement where they show a sort of policeman with his knee on someone, and that's held for 8 seconds, and apparently people are finding that really uncomfortable. So he was actually saying there's nothing wrong with this is what's happening in our world at the moment. Then the other guy, his point of view was that actually he's saying that politics shouldn't be aired or viewed on entertainment programs like that. That's not the forum for it. So apparently that's where some of the complaints have come from. Personally, I disagree with that. I think it's a great way to get things out there, and perhaps you might reach people who before you hadn't by doing some of that. Piers Morgan said that someone had complained that it was too violent, but his point was, and I agree with him, you can see more violent stuff on EastEnders these days.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What do you think? Kat, what do you think about it?
I think that if you can express these sort of things through art like dance, or say in music or anything like that, then is our only way of expressing these issues through conversation. But I feel like conversation has gotten a little bit too common, because it's getting to the point now where people aren't listening, and it's not getting the point across.
Yeah.
Jay, can you hear us? I know Jay's been having some technical issues this morning.
I think it's a bit on and off in it with Jay at the minute. Volume.
Yeah, it's the joys of being probably in Somerset. That's what I'm thinking. Stephen, what do you think?
Well, it seems like some people are getting more irate at the performance than the fact that a police officer murdered a black man.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, Diversity are a dance group, but it's up to them what they do with that, isn't it? No one should be able to tell them, like, especially because I don't know who Diversity really are, but I think they're predominantly like black or ethnic minority group.
Yeah.
So for them, that's obviously an issue that affects them in their lives. And who's to say that they shouldn't be allowed to to express themselves and express how they're feeling through what they do, which is being creative. And it's only a couple of weeks ago that people were kicking off because they weren't going to see fucking Rule Britannia or something at the proms. So people saying that keep the politics out of entertainment or whatever. It's all right when it's their politics that they want to put into entertainment.
Yeah.
And the shoe's on the other foot, they don't want to hear it. And I just think it's ridiculous, to be honest. I wouldn't even be surprised if there's some kind of coordinated campaign against that performance by specific political groups.
Well, they're being asked to apologise. They're being asked to apologise for it. Yeah, because there's a petition now as well. I'm not sure where it is, this petition, but there's a petition asking them to take it off of YouTube and to not be able to share it amongst other people. It's on YouTube at the minute, but comments on there have been disabled, so people can no longer comment on the video on YouTube.
But part of the reason why I think the comments were is because they were getting so much abuse.
Well,
the comments from it, the discussion was that people thought it was political. But actually, everything is political. There's nothing that we do in our lives that isn't political. So if you feel safe on the street, that's political. How your children go to school, political. How much university fee, political. Whether you can be a youth and community worker, political. Everything in your life, political. So the idea of being unpolitical.
You keep breaking up for me, Bianca. I'm not sure we've got that for everybody else, but it's like you keep going it loud and quiet, loud and quiet, loud and quiet.
What I was just going to say is one of the guys from Diversity actually hosts a radio show in the mornings, and I listen to that on the way when I'm in the car. And I can't remember if it was yesterday or Friday. The guy who's in Diversity actually got very upset on the radio, and he said that in all of his career of dancing, he's never received such abuse and negativity as what he has over this particular dance. And he was just making the point that he's a black man, and actually what's happened in the world recently has really affected him and affecting his co-workers within his dance group. So why should he be afraid of it expressing that? And I 100% agree. I felt really sorry for him. He really choked up on the radio. So, you know, I just think it's...
Sorry, continue.
No, go on, finished.
So this is the sinister side of it, isn't it? Because you've got this group of black people who are using what they're good at to express themselves, and there's a movement to kind of silence them from being able to voice their opinions on something that is very dear to them. And we'd live in a very sad world if people who are suffering these problems and oppressions were not allowed to voice them, which seems to be the end conclusion of this. Because
sorry,
continue.
I think that like everybody has a different way of expressing themselves. So some people will do it through dance, they'll do it through music, they'll do it through arts. And I think that if you find a way to express yourself, you should do it in the way you see fit. Because not everybody's the same. Nobody's the same. We can't all express ourselves through conversation, for example. So, and I think it's also putting it out there that putting it out there in so many different ways that everybody can understand it.
Definitely. I was just going to say, well, some people can't, they may not be able to convey themselves within a conversation or don't have the confidence to be able to speak about it. But like you've just said, express themselves in a different way. Surely that's a good thing.
I also think the other thing that's really important to remember is that whilst the George Floyd representation was an American thing, people have died in our custody. So the issue of Black Lives Matter is not separate to England. This is not something that happens in America. Yeah, this is something that happens in England, where the police are still instrumentally, structurally, systematically racist. Do you mean, let's be quite clear that we live in a racist society, and it's our jobs as white people to dismantle racism. Do you mean? And it's our job to then challenge the racism that this particular band of people, because, quite frankly, living in Britain, being black is tough enough. Do you mean, being followed in shops, being thought of that if a group of white people hang out at the park, we're just chilling. If a group of black people hang in the park, they're a gang selling drugs. Do you mean our stereotypes of the black community are horrific?
I don't know if you remember, but a few months ago now, there was this actor called Lawrence Fox, and he was on the media and stuff, and they put him all on front page, and he was saying very questionable kind of political views, which were pretty much racist, and that didn't garner so many complaints. So I think there's this kind of problem with England in a way, that there's this offense, people taking offense at other people standing up for themselves.
Yeah.
But like, if a white guy had done what the person had done about some kind of white issue, I don't know, would there be so many complaints? And I don't think there would be, because that Lawrence Fox thing didn't garner like 10k plus, I don't know how many it is now, complaints.
They want to pretend that this isn't happening.
Yeah, there's like a mask of civility and politeness, but actually underneath it, it's rotten.
And this is also instrumental with the fact that our black friends, young people, community members, people of colour are more likely to live in poverty, are more likely to be affected by COVID, are more likely to be suffering from all types of discrimination, from healthcare to life expectancy. Do you mean? And actually, when we think about that, we're in 2020. This is horrific. How long have we been shouting about it? I was looking at my Facebook thread the other day, and you have your memories, and something like 10, 15 years ago, there were people saying Black Lives Matter. Do you mean? At what point are Black lives actually going to matter?
What kind of person saw that Britain's Got Talent thing and their first thought was, you know what, I'm going to complain about this? Not, oh man, this is terrible. I can't believe this is happening. You know, what can I do to help? Their first thought is, you know what, I'm going to fucking I'm going to complain to Ofcom about this.
Yeah. Well, we're live, so I won't answer your question.
Luke, how do you want to sum up what you're thinking about this particular issue?
I think it's ridiculous. I don't really know what to say about it, really. I mean, I think what everyone said is pretty much bang on. But I genuinely didn't know why people were complaining about it. And I probably still don't know. But you know, I've watched it a few times. I'll keep watching it again because I think it's really powerful routine that they did, and I think the message was really good and well done to them.
I did read. Oh, sorry, Bianca. I did read this morning that Diversity have been booked for the Britain's Got Talent Christmas special. So I don't know if that's someone above at the BBC and making a point and saying, actually, we're still going to use these again. I don't know, but I just read that this morning saying that they have been booked for that. So
the people, in my opinion, who've complained about this particular dance need to look at themselves and ask the question in an honest way: am I racist? Yeah. What's my white privilege?
Big time.
And that's a really uncomfortable place to be. That's the answer. So this is about people being racist, and this is about white privilege. And people need to actually come to terms with it. They're not going to get a policeman kneel on their neck because they're white people. I mean, however, we cannot spend all time talking about dancing.
Can you link the thing in the comments? Can you link the performance?
Yeah, I will put the link of their performance so you can have a look at it. Absolutely. And then you can have a dance around your front room. Or if you've got 5 friends, right? But the number 6, yeah, then you can do your own dance with your dance group at home. But Jay, we're talking now about COVID, the number 6, and who's to blame. Hit us with it.
Well, the main point I've got is how many young people are being blamed for it now being a rule of 6, especially like students. And the main thing I've seen is like, oh well, they're all having house parties, or they're all doing this, or the eat out to help out scheme is being blamed, and everything else. And obviously, from my point of view, the amount of young people and students and stuff that are having house parties or going out or big groups or whatever massively outweighs the amount of them that are sort of working through it or working in pubs and restaurants and everything that's now reopened. And I just think that not the wrong demographic is being blamed, but I don't think there's one sole group you can put the blame on, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we all have a part to play in this, don't we? I do understand that at the minute they're saying the people with the highest amount of COVID, the 19 to 29s or something? But
yeah,
but I agree with you. You know, I've heard a lot of people saying, oh, they're all back at uni, all these house parties, but like, you know, you've just said, maybe that's a bit unfair because a lot of you guys are just, you know, working through. But I just think you can't target and blame a certain demographic. It's we all have our part to play in this, and I think that's what people have got to remember.
Well, in all honesty, we're not all back at uni yet. You know, uni doesn't start for another week yet, and people are still trying to figure out how the move's going to go. They're all really, really anxious about COVID and being able to actually go to face-to-face meetings at uni. So we are all taking the right precautions to keep us and everybody else safe. You know, they're looking at it from an outside view instead of getting young people's opinions.
I think Jay made a good point that a lot of young people are working through this, and a lot of young people in that demographic work in service sector jobs like shops, like restaurants, where you're going to come into contact with a lot of people where they could get COVID, you know, shops, restaurants, and they're just doing their job. And because young people can be asymptomatic, like have a high percentage of being, they're not going to know they've got it, and it could easily spread then, couldn't it? So I think it's very easy to say, oh, they're just having parties and stuff, because then the government gets to blame someone else but themselves, and they've done that from the beginning.
Yeah.
Well, one of my friends lives in a 14-bedroom house.
Exactly.
And they've had the police called on their house about three or four times, literally since Friday.
But have you seen now? They're telling you to ring up on your neighbours if there's more than 6 people in the garden.
So then what are the police saying when they get there? They have to explain that it's a 14-bed house, so there's going to be...
Yeah, the first officer that went round was like, that's fine, not an issue, like, sorry, basically. But the second one that went round actually asked for, like, proof that they all lived there, wanted a tour of the house. And I was like, to me, that doesn't sound legit. Like...
If you got that response from the police every time.
I think they need a warrant to come into your house.
Yeah, and I mean, they were all just like, yeah, leave us alone. This is our bedroom. Like, we all live here.
One of the interesting things, though, in terms of youth and community work, as a detached youth worker, so if we see young people out in groups more than 6, and we are with them, they're not breaking the law, because youth and community workers are key workers, we're essential workers. So we're allowed to work with groups bigger than 6. So bubbles of 15. So if you've got 30 people ready to be in groups of 15, so we can work with them. As we leave them, they break the law. Yeah, so they break the law before we meet them. While they meet them, they're all right. And as we leave them, they're breaking the law again. That has to be utter madness for key workers.
It's crazy. It's craziness.
I know, but Kat, you're going to do some detached work today with Free to Talk. Is that a conversation that you've had with your team there?
Yeah, when the rule of 6 came out, it was will do youth in community work actually have to abide by this rule, and it wasn't until later on that day that we found out that actually it is an essential service now. But with our detached work, what we do is we just walk around the area and just try and maybe remind the young people of the rules, because we've just been bombarded with all these different rules that it is quite easy to not understand them, maybe forget some. So we're trying to remind the young people of the rules, as well as try and abide by them ourselves.
For us at Community Courtyard, we're doing something different. So I know that lots of organisations who work with young people in Northampton are going to be working in bubbles for 15, but we're not. We're going to keep to the rule of 6. And the reason we're putting to the rule of 6 building and our face-to-face work is because, for the exact reason you said, Kat, the messages are really confusing. The messages for young people are you can be in a big group at school, you can go to the hospital, but then if you're with your mates, you've got to be 6. So we're going to try and encourage that to help young people have a clearer rule. And also because we feel that 6 people in the yard will probably be okay. Yeah, I don't really want 15 people in a bubble, but there are organisations that work with people in the yard who will be working in bigger groups. But that's not where we're going to go at the moment, in terms of the fact that in Northampton, the numbers in COVID are still increasing. I was on the phone to a GP today and the numbers are not going down. So are we actually, and it's interesting as key workers, why are we so keen to work with 15 people at a time? Why are we not going? Actually, our responsibility at the moment should be about helping people reduce their contact and stay safe. So I think there's a debate to be having nationally around that. And I do think that we haven't thought about the legalities in terms of detached youth work, in terms of us making young people legal and then making them unlegal afterwards. Do you mean? Are we supporting them to be in their groups of 6 afterwards? They have to be in their group of 6 afterwards when we leave them, or are we actually leaving them breaking the law? Because we wouldn't leave them if they were committing a crime. Well, we need to remember that actually this legislation is a law. Not I would like to do it. It's not. The police can disperse you. It's a law. So how does that work?
Fine you as well.
So we've got some real interesting negotiations to make, and I think that for all organisations working with young people in a detached sense, outreach and detached is going to be a really carefully navigated experience for all of us. We're all trying to find a way in these unregulated times. We've never been like this before. We've never had to count the young people and go, okay, you 6, hang out. But we do need to remind young people, because we don't want them getting fined or criminalised just for having fun. You are still and you are allowed to hang out with 6 people.
Well, this is it, isn't it? Are they going to be using this as a way to criminalise young people, and they've already laid the ground as them as a scapegoat? So are they just going to low-hanging fruit go after young people now, and then they can use that to reinforce it as evidence, because the only people they've gone after are young people? But one of the things that I think is important is that young people learn predominantly from peers and adults. So when you've got a lot of adults that are not taking this seriously, like coming back from Spain, the amount of people that I see walking around without masks on, the confusion in the rules, how the government haven't really led on this at all. Young people just have learned behaviours. So when you've got a wider society that isn't taking the issue maybe as seriously as it should, the youth are a product of that society. So then to blame them is a cop out, really, isn't it?
Definitely.
I saw something on Facebook, and it said we can go to the pub in groups of 6 and then be surrounded by like 20 other groups of 6. So almost like made me think, if you put it in that sense, what is the point of the rule? Because you're being surrounded by strangers, really. And I think it brings up the topic of it's not young people, you know, it is other groups of society.
I completely agree with you, and I think the other thing is that we need to be quite clear that this government doesn't actually care about us as individuals. They care about the economy, and they've shown that throughout this whole COVID example. They've not provided universal basic income that would enable people to stay at home when they've got symptoms. They've not provided any financial support to people. And quite frankly, the idea that you can go to a pub but you can't go to your mum and dad's because you might break the rule of 6 is an absolute disgrace.
You can also go grouse shooting. They've exempt that from the rules completely.
Yes, I saw that today. You can go grouse shooting.
Working class communities go grouse shooting? I don't know anyone who's ever bloody gone grouse shooting.
Terrible. I thought exactly the same thing this morning, you know?
Ridiculous.
It's not just terrible in terms of like humorous, it's a clear message to ordinary people that this government just cares about the rich. It just cares about business, it just cares about the economy. They weren't saying, oh, look at all of those old people in hospitals, you've all shared COVID, blame you, blame you. They're trying to blame us when actually that's their responsibility for not having distributed masks effectively, for not having PPE, for failing our care homes, for failing to look after our elderly. Do you mean care home COVID is going up again? Whose fault is that? That's the government. Do you mean our doctors and nurses are putting their lives at risk? Whose fault is that? That's the government's. Do you mean this is a shameful excuse, especially when young people are at this point in time living in one of the most lack of hope times, can't afford a house, putting themselves in debt for university, can't be guaranteed a job. Do you mean everything they do, people just don't really help with? Do you mean it's shocking? Jay, how would you like to sum up my rant? Not really my rant, but your Fred.
I don't know, other than like it really bugs me that we're all trying to do the right, not all of us obviously, there's a few bad eggs in the bunch, but it seems to be most people are trying to do the right thing, but because we're all, well, a lot of us are, like you say, service workers and everything else, it's like, well, they're always out, so it's their fault. And it just really annoys me that no matter what sort of my age group and generation do, it's like, well, it's your fault. And yeah, it just bugs me, that's all.
Absolutely, and you're right to be bugged. The important part of this, Jay and Kat and students of the world, young people, is that you have a political voice, and you must remember this when the next time to vote happens. Yeah, are you registered to vote? If you're not, please get yourself registered, because it doesn't have to be like this. A better world is possible, but that's for a different discussion. We're now moving on to Kat's discussion. Kat, what are you hitting with us today?
The other day I saw a post on Facebook, and it actually brung up a lot of issues. it was about a homeless man who has based himself outside a popular supermarket in Northampton, and how homeless people have been banned from the shop because they steal. And he had a sign that said, "I don't do drugs, I don't drink alcohol, I just need £18 a day to have somewhere to stay for the night." And I think it has brought up a lot of issues with homelessness, especially within this pandemic. People are forgetting that there are people still on the street. The government may have said something at the start where they're going to support the homelessness, but also, what about now? COVID is still a thing. COVID is still happening. It's still spreading. What is the support for them now? Sort of thing. And it just sort of kind of riled me in the fact that there are still a lot of homeless people out there, and how there's a very lack of support. They're caught in a system where they need a house, they need an address to get proof of identification. But to get proof of identification, you need a house, you need bank statements, and there's no support in order for them to get that without one or the other.
Oh, absolutely. What do you think about this issue? Have you seen more homeless people back in the streets after COVID? Because COVID at the beginning of it, the homeless were moved into hotels.
I have seen. I've only just moved back to Northampton, and homelessness seems to be a bigger issue here in Northampton to where I live at home. And there are quite a few homeless people around town centre.
Yeah, absolutely.
I haven't been to the town centre really. Like, I've only been once since COVID sort of struck. No, I've actually been twice. After lockdown, I didn't actually notice any more homeless people, but it was only a very brief sort of trip into town and out. So yeah, I'm probably not the best to sort of say, because I haven't actually really. I mean, I know obviously it does happen in Northampton anyway. I just haven't yet seen the impact since post lockdown really.
There's going to be a huge spike in homelessness coming, like with the furlough scheme ending and evictions being allowed soon.
Yeah.
There's going to be a huge spike in homelessness, and because the government for the past God knows how many years has cut access to services which help these people help people on the streets, then it means you get trapped in a cycle. And a lot of people, like that guy having to have a sign saying he doesn't do drugs and stuff, is really sad, because a lot of people walk past homeless people on the street and just judge them before they even speak to them, and they probably won't even speak to them. You know, they'll just look the other way and walk on by. And because we're in a society that values profit and money over human beings, so a homeless person is sadly not valued at all in the society that we live in. And it means that these people live on the streets and we don't solve the problem. It'd be cheaper to actually house everyone who's homeless and treat them with respect than to deal with the effects that homelessness has on the person and society at large. So it's like a knock-on effect, and it's a dangerous cycle to get trapped in, because living on the streets is not nice. And sadly, a lot of people on the streets do turn to alcohol and drugs to get by. My uncle, for example, he lived on the streets, and he was afraid to go sleep at night, and the only way he could actually fall asleep was if he had a drink, because a lot of bad things happen to homeless people on the streets at night. You know, it's scary. It's scary for them living on the streets.
Definitely.
I think also the other thing when we're thinking about some young people is that sofa surfing is this hidden homelessness. And I'm also really aware, I don't know whether you all are or what you think, but I'm hearing of more and more people who were furloughed who now have lost their jobs. And the financial pressure, there isn't a worse pressure, I don't think, than financial. Because you can't magic it up, can you? You've got no money, but no one around you's got money. No one's got a spare £1,000 to pay your rent and your food and your gas and the electric. So once it's gone, it's gone. And when you try and apply for universal income and all of those kind of things, it's all done online. There's no one to help you. I mean, you can't go into the job centre how you did years ago and do things. And because of COVID, everything is really remote anyway. So what happens if you haven't got the money for the internet, or you don't have access to a device? It just feels like we're slipping down a really difficult space where the level of homelessness is going to increase rapidly.
So I think there needs to be this kind of shift in attitudes, because, you know, a lot of, I'd say the predominant view in at least political circles is that homelessness is a personal problem that is caused because of something that person has done, rather than homelessness is a societal issue and it needs society to respond. So there needs to be a kind of safety net that exists, because anyone can become homeless at any time. Majority of people are one pay packet away from being on the street. So it can happen at any time to anyone. And then once you're in there, it's really hard to get off the street. So there needs to be this kind of shift which starts treating it as an issue for the whole of society rather than blaming the person. Homelessness is a failure of the community and the society. It's not the failure of the individual. And until that view changes, homelessness will continue.
I also think when that leads into like what charitable organisations do, how we helping each other and how we allow people to become dependent. I was pleased to read today, and I've put it in the link, that the Hope Centre have just got their first house. So for those people who are unable to access public funding, they will be able to get a room at Hope Centre's house, which is really good start. And one of the things that Community Courtyard have done every year is around Christmas time or in December, we do a rucksack project. And I was really excited that Kat wanted to bring this up as an issue today, because last year we didn't have a rucksack project because we were moving the yard. But this year, this will be our 9th year of it. So what we do every year is we do a shout out for anybody who's got a spare rucksack, and for people who want to fill up that rucksack. So if you've got a rucksack, that's fine. But maybe you've got a sleeping bag, maybe you've got a woolly hat, maybe you've got a pair of gloves, some socks, pen, paper, so people can write down their story, a book, some chocolate, a flask. Fill up that rucksack and deliver it to us. And then what we'll be doing in December as part of our detached work is going out on the streets and distributing it to people who actually, for a variety of reasons, struggle. And remember that when it's wet and windy, you need more than one set of clothes. You need more than one woolly hat. You need more than one sleeping bag. Do you mean? So it's really important that this isn't about Community Courtyard keeping people on the streets. It's actually about Community Courtyard saying, we see you, we're not ignoring you, you are a real person, and we're sorry that we don't have the space to do, but we'll do the best we can. So over the next few weeks, watch out for Kat, because she's going to be leading on this project, which is very exciting for us. And see how young people are making a difference to the homeless, not just the visible homeless, but the sofa surfing homeless within Northamptonshire. And before we end off, I just want to read out Jonathan's comment around homelessness. He says, we're having a community local economic drain in many areas in the UK, resulting in guaranteed homelessness. This is a business issue based on international and UK laws for trade. Well said, Jonathan. Very good. And Laurel, she agrees that homelessness is a massive issue. Absolutely. It actually scares me to think that people are one paycheck away and that could happen to any of us. So we're very much counting our blessings here at Community Courtyard this week. But I've really enjoyed this week's conversations. It's been very good. I just want to remind you of a couple of things in Northampton. So the Lowdown are still open and they are doing all of their counselling services when they're reconnected to face-to-face work. And don't forget that their youth meets every fortnight. So they're meeting this week in the courtyard at the Lowdown. Free to Talk are doing their detached work. They've also got some of their project-based work from the Forest School to the radio station for the music stuff that Connor and everyone's doing. And don't forget to check out James on Free to Talk TV. He's been doing some great things with sock puppets, really, and some other culinary delights. You've also got Spring Charity, who are opening up and starting their work again slowly. And you've got NAYC, who are helping lots of smaller groups all around Northampton reconnect and starting them. However, if you are struggling, if you need a space, please come and drop in or knock on the door at the yard. We're not open, but the door is creeping open slightly. Yeah, and the kettle will be on, and you'll find that not this week, but next week, Jasmin will be there in the mornings, Luke in the afternoons. So we're beginning to reconnect people, and you'll only get to see Jaiy through the internet, but she'll still be around doing storytelling stuff, which is great. So that's fantastic. Also, ignore the video that I did last night talking about Black and British and the forgotten history, because we're not reading that next week. That is actually for October. So we're reading about the 1% versus the 99%. I think I put it in the storytelling book. That's not the title, but it's something similar to that. But you can check that out as well. And don't forget that Luke's got his quiz. We've got lots of bits and pieces happening. Jasmin's getting ready to deliver the happiness workshops that we're going to start offering. And actually, things are pretty busy here at Community Courtyard. But as always, if there's something that we haven't done but you would like us to do, then please, please, please give us a shout, get in touch, and we'll see if we can make it happen. Have a great day, everybody. Stay safe. And if you're in Northampton, but everywhere, 2 meters. So that's like a proper big person in front of you. Yeah, keep that far away from people. Wear your face mask. Even if you don't look as gorgeous as you normally do, you're wrong. You look fab with the face mask on. And as soon as you get home, wash your hands. Okay, that's the important part. Face mask, wash your hands, 2 meters away. Together, we can keep safe from COVID. It isn't something we need to be scared about. It's just something we need to be mindful of. Thanks for joining us today. Bye-bye.
Bye.